So our final look here is going to take the relative error formula and uh, talk about it in terms of error. And this can be a little bit confusing, so I encourage you when you're creating, say, a reference sheet for the exam, that you write down your percent change formula, your relative error formula, and then the relative difference formulas. They're all the same formula, but how we do the calculations will change your interpretation. So, for example, when you look at page 72 at the bottom of the page, we're told that the difference between the actual amount and the estimated amount is called the actual error. So I'm going to write that down as a formula. Actual minus estimate. And then the relative error would become actual minus estimate divided by estimate. So in terms of before, when we just talked about difference, we said new minus old, and then relative difference, new minus old divided by old. Well, that language is problematic because when we're doing an estimate, which value do you call the new, which value do you call the old? It's not quite as clear. Often with these, we talked about time, so it was very easy to tell what the new value was versus the old value. So now we have to be careful to distinguish what is the value that we've observed in the real world versus what is the value that we're estimating. So here's an example. First, we're going to do some conversion factors, some dimensional analysis. So we got a professional guidelines, and installer estimates that the square yards of carpet for this particular bedroom is 24 2/3 yards. For both this bedroom and the closet. So we're first going to calculate the actual area, and then we're going to compare it to our professional installer's estimate. So to find the area of the bedroom in square inches, note that the width and the length here is how we calculate area. So he tells it to us is length times width. So this just becomes 171 times 138. By the way, what you call the width and the length doesn't matter. You can switch those either way. So jumping to Desmos, we're just going to do 131 times, let me try again, 171 times 138, and we get 23,598 square inches. And the way you would write that is just inches squared. Then the closet, we're going to do the same thing. That's just 64 inches. I probably should have put the units above as well, just for clarity. So 64 times 50. Let's check that calculation in Desmos. 64 times 50, 3,200 square inches, which we would write as inches squared. Where'd that come from? Inches squared. All right, and then we're told that each doorway is 32 inches wide, and the walls are 4 inches thick. So this measurement here is 4 inches, and then the distance from here to here is 32 inches. And carpet is needed for the entire doorway between the bedroom and the closet. So we need all of that here, and then only half of that up here. So if I use we can do these in two separate calculations. For the closet, the amount of area for this portion is simply 4 times 32, and that would be an inches squared. For the doorway, it's half that. So we do 4 times 32 chopped in half, because based on what he's saying here, we only want it up to there, and then there's something else when you leave the room, some other form of carpet or flooring. And again, inches squared. So let's see, this is an 8, and 4 times 3 is 12, so this is 128, and half of that is 64 inches squared. So the total area for those doorways is, let's see, 2 carry 1, 192 inches squared. All right. Okay, then he has us talk a little bit differently here. He says, well, we know that there are 36 inches in 1 yard. So 36 inches equals 1 yard. Remember, we knew that there were 3 feet was 1 yard, and there's 12 inches in 1 foot, so that's where this came from. But how many square inches are there in a square yard? Well, if we look at this, we've got, to get this area, he says, do the multiplication. 1 times 1 equals 1 square yard. Well, then if we change that into 36 inches, the way to get that area is we have to do 36 times 36 to get the inches squared. Now, I should know how to do that in my head. I should have that memorized. I'll mess up. Oh, there it is. 1,296 square inches. Well, what is this? What is the consequence of this calculation? This tells us that 1 yard squared equals 1,296 inches squared. So we have to be very careful when we're converting within square units. The conversion factor is not as simple as 1 yard equals 36 inches. All right, so we're going to use that to convert the total carpet area from above into yards, square yards, to compare it to our actual estimate. Well, we need to add together the 3 calculations that we have: the bedroom, the closet, and the doorways. So we're going to have 23,598 inches squared plus 3,200 inches squared plus 192 inches squared. That's going to be the total area that we need to then convert into cubic yards. Sorry, not cubic yards, squared yards. So 23,598 plus 3,200 plus 192, we get 26,990 inches squared. Now, if I want to convert this to square yards, this is my equivalency statement, and I can write 2 conversion factors for this. 1 yard squared divided by 1,296 inches squared, or the other one, back from 1.6, 1,296 inches divided by 1 yard squared. So the question is, which one of these conversion factors do we want to multiply times our total here? Well, it's the one that removes the inches squared, which is the first one I wrote. The yards in the numerator, the inches in the denominator. Hopefully you can see why. These inches squared cancel, and we get a result. So if we want to know the total number of yards needed, we're going to divide 26,990 by 1,296. Of course, we're going to let Desmos do that for us. And we get 20.826 yards squared. Now, keep track that we rounded this value to 3 decimal places.